Thursday, September 26th. This meeting will be held in person, but can also be viewed on local cable channel 1303 or via the internet by going to bucksportmaine.gov and selecting agendas and meetings and clicking on the video button next to the meeting. You can email questions or comments prior to or during the meeting to slassard@bucksportmaine.gov or call during the meeting at 307-8030. Roll call: Ed Rankin Jr.
Here.
Tracy Hare.
Here.
And Mark Eastman's here. The second item is Public Works Garage and Sand Salt Shed Doors. That's you.
And I would just ask before we start, because we've had some people who've contacted us saying that there's a hum on the sound. Our IT people tell me it's because they have to turn up the microphones because we sometimes aren't speaking directly into them. So when you speak, please speak into the microphone and they can turn down that volume, which will in turn reduce the hum. Thank you. I'm just relaying until we get our new handy dandy one in the center of the room that picks up everything except people whispering in the back of the room. We will, if we remember that, then the hum gets reduced and people at home can hear us better. So, sorry.
Fair enough. No.
That's my public service announcement for this
Make sure you're speaking into the mic.
Speak into the mic.
So, I'm here because we have been trying to, for several years now, to make this happen about replacing the garage doors on the back of the town garage and the sand shed. This past winter, the door on the sand shed blew away during one of those terrible winds we had, so we decided that we would get some estimates and ideas from the different garage door companies, and they were like, you really shouldn't be messing around with that sliding door because of the way the air can get through it. And so they proposed having a roll-up type of door that coils up. That's what most other municipalities do. And once we realized that that was a thing that we could do, we were like, yeah, that's a great idea, because then it doesn't interfere with the trucks that we have dumping and salt deliveries and stuff inside of the building, like an overhead door would do. It doesn't have the track. So anyway, that was one of the one of the prices that we have on here. And the two doors on the back of the garage are the two left from about a 10-year process. We've been trying to slowly update the doors, and the ones we have, the tracks have almost worn through in places from being cycled so many times over the years. So anyway, we got bids from Overhead Door and from PDQ. Mixing them together, they're virtually the same price when you add it all up. My numbers show a difference of $161. We have had, I believe, all the other doors have all been through PDQ. So even though $161 more, we would recommend to go with the same company for continuity of all the equipment that we have, compatibility, if you so desire.
These are all with openers.
Yep, they all have openers and remotes.
How much will the wiring be, do you think? The electric part?
That wouldn't even register. That's stuff that we can make happen in-house. They just don't like to say they don't want to touch it, but they actually do make the connections. And all the electricity is there anyway.
Yeah.
From the previous doors.
Right.
So they put that on all the bids for liability.
Okay. Yep.
I think it makes sense to go with the same company just for maintenance.
Yeah, to have one company coming back to make
Convenience,
all the.
Yeah. And they've treated us well with maintenance calls, and we haven't had any issues with the company. So
When we've hit them.
yes, there's been incidents.
I thought you meant you hit the company. It took
No.
me a second
No.
to realize you meant you hit the door.
No, the doors have, depending on storms and stuff, there've been a couple times when someone thought a door was somewhere that it wasn't yet. But this is on here tonight. If you decide to move it forward, it would be on a resolve at the next meeting, because I didn't put the resolve on tonight because you hadn't discussed this. So it's up to you what you
Does anybody have a
want to do with these.
motion? or
I'll
recommendation?
put a motion to send it to council.
I'd like to jump in on this at the
Sure.
committee level if we could, but we just went through this with a much larger scale with someone else that was local, that has done a good job for us, that we went with the lowest bid for the integrity of our bid process. And that individual had also served us well with that scenario. I understand this scenario with PDQ has served us well, but they are not the lowest bid. Do you understand where I'm going with this?
I do.
I-
The only difference here is that for the walls, both company had installed walls
Yep.
with the doors. All the other doors at the garage that have been installed have been done by PDQ, or if that makes it, whatever you choose to go with, but the one infrastructure is the same way we've done with going with Freightliner over International or others, is to have one kind of, for maintenance purposes. The wall project that both of those entities had installed the walls here in the community. I'm only explaining what you've done in the
Right.
past in regard to it, but it's a valid point. It's, whether it's $100 or it's $2,500, it's still a difference in,
I actually see the difference. I agreed with the other scenario.
Yeah.
This one I agree with this scenario because it's the continuity in the doors. The doors are all the same. It's the same company that's installed all the doors in the building.
Yeah.
It would be it would be the same scenario if, what's the other company?
Overhead.
If Overhead had installed 5 doors and PDQ had installed 5 doors and they decided to do PDQ instead of Overhead, but Overhead was the lower bid, that would be the same scenario.
Exactly.
In
yeah.
this scenario, PDQ has installed all the doors in it.
Yeah.
So it only makes sense to have the same company.
So there's one person, one outfit to call.
You got one, now we don't have to call 2 companies to fix a door.
Which one put that one in?
Which one, right? I actually, for the $160, I think
For maintenance
it makes
purposes.
maintenance purposes.
But also during this 10-year process, it's been multiple bids that PDQ has won the bids previous to. It just happens to be this last round that it's. And I mean, it's not the end of the world if you decide to go the other way. It's just, that was just,
Yeah.
Matt and I discussed it today.
And is it different name brand equipment?
It's
as
a
well?
different, yes, it
Yeah.
would be a different door, and I'm not sure if the opener is the same brand, but
Okay.
So you see advantages to staying with one outfit as
yeah,
opposed to two?
we've had, we don't have any complaints with the
PDQ.
product or the service that we've gotten with the other 8
Services
doors.
here.
Yep.
A second.
So a motion and a second to recommend to the council for PDQ?
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? The third item is animal shelter alternative location. Are you speaking on this, Steve? Or are we just gonna?
Well, we're just gonna put this in for a discussion. I have no new information on this. Now that we are at the committee level, do we want to move forward with contacting the owner through code enforcement and potentially doing a site visit to see how feasible this scenario is, if that was something that would be welcomed by the owner?
I think we kind of have to,
Yeah.
to know
That's what I thought the next step would be.
the sale price was what.
They're asking $650 on Facebook.
Okay, so they say 650. If it needs $100,000 of retro, we need to know that.
Sure.
I'm not against it. I want to know either
what's-
way, whether we can go with this or if behind the town garage or like originally planned is the way to go. I want to do apples to apples, and the only way to do that, I think, is to see it.
I mean, I'm not opposed, but there are other differences too. I mean, if we do it behind the town garage, it's already owned land, there's town personnel already out there. Police would be by it more often, gas pumps are out there.
I would like to get Public Safety Director Gagan's take on this, because that
Me
was what
too.
he was against for Route 46.
And the same, we've talked about other locations for other things, and that visibility or the, having staff, out there is, I think, beneficial. But, we can take about whatever the pleasure of the.
In looking at this, there was also the discussion of the fact that, for approximately the same amount of money, and if it was $650 and $100 and it was $750 to do a development, it's the same dollars. There was a discussion that this property offered, an opportunity for an income stream or income streams that the one behind the town garage may not, in terms of leasing part of the property or utilizing part of the property for other things that the town had identified that it wanted to do but hadn't found a place to do, like a dog park and some of these other things that are. But, and I'm happy to do whichever you want to do, but if, it's on the agenda because it was raised as a maybe, and for the committee to decide whether you wanted to invest any time, effort, and energy in this, or you just wanted to continue the path you were on before.
I mean, I think it's worth looking at, just to see what we're looking at, and, cause it feels like it could be more than 100 to retrofit it to a shelter.
It could be,
Yeah.
that's why I
But
think a
it'd be
site
good to know, right?
evaluation is
Yeah.
crucial.
Yeah, and also to look at it with that lens of an income producer, what type of business could be out there, looking at it as well as talking to Director Gagan
Yeah.
and finding out their concerns. But
I think we had somebody in the public, Paul, you want to make a comment?
Even if we don't, there's other acreage with that we could just flat out sell
So,
to recoup some of our money. I'm just looking at this as, if you're holding the same amount of money and you have two scenarios, obviously you get some back on the Millville scenario. So that's what I'm trying to bring the cost of this down.
And there's plenty of room there, I believe, for if we did sell land to have a right-of-way, correct?
Yes.
Well, there's a fair amount of wet out there too to be aware of, that I always knew to be out there.
Well, the other
and
thing
that's
that
part of looking at it, right?
location
Find out
and
how,
its
yeah.
location on that parcel offers is highly unlikely that the neighbors would be mad.
I was actually gonna bring that up. I mean, that's a location that you don't have the complaints that you have at the location that it's at now.
Yes.
The location, to be honest, behind the town garage. We can say whatever we want, you're gonna have complaints there. It's just a matter of time.
Well, but I do think the complaints have lessened even in the past year.
100%.
Of
They
the
have
noise.
for its location down behind the transfer station.
You know, out there, it's not a built-up area. It is what it was, right? There's always been animals there. That's what it was built for, right? It's always been a barn, essentially what it is. I go by it every day.
Yeah.
I mean,
I lived around the corner.
You
from
lived
it.
around the corner, right? I mean, I travel by it every day. I mean, the property's enormous. There's so
I'm
much
good.
potential
I'm just
for
listening.
it. I'm sorry, Paul.
No,
I
no,
didn't mean
no,
to cut
I'm-
into your time.
I'm just taking it all in.
There is a
Life
lot
is
of,
good.
there's a lot of potential for that property, for a lot of different things with it, I think, my opinion.
Paul, we're out of time now.
Well, see you at the next meeting. I just think that this Plan A is I'm not sure we want to get the town into a owning real estate mode. That's what and at the price level we're talking, we'd be looking at adding a mill to our tax rate.
Well, I mean, in some defense, any conversation we've had about the animal shelter, there's always been a component of
Well,
fundraising
This
towards
funding,
half.
I get that. So, anyway, carrying on from Plan A, a couple of weeks ago, came in with Plan B and said, why don't we go to the county, Hancock County, because things have changed, and they now have an animal control officer, and they're based out of Tremont, and they got involved with this Millville property. A lot of the animals ended up there, and they're hooked in with the Humane Society and SPCA and all that. However, in today's other newspaper that comes out, the initial tax increase for the county, they're looking at some 34%. So I don't think they're gonna be too eager to look at a big facility for, you know. So, moving on to Plan C, which falls into maybe the category of, let's not raise the bridge, why don't we lower the river? And the thought process there is, right now, we are engaged animal control with multiple municipalities. And if we were to cut back just to taking care of Bucksport, the sheer number of animals that we're dealing with would be decreased. And the animal control officer, whether she stays on, or he or she, whoever it may be, or come along in the future, stays on as either Bucksport or collaborates with Hancock County, seeing as we're at really the southern end of the county here. But going down that road would enable us to reduce our cost footprint going forward, whether we stay where we are. There could be things, I know they want a place to be able to do paperwork and have dry storage and all that other stuff. Well, there are heated and air conditioning engineering trailers that are small, have a workspace that can accomplish that, and at the same time have some dry storage and so forth. So it's, again, it's just another, like I said, instead of raising the bridge, let's lower the river and have a go at it that way.
What are the contract obligations with municipalities? What do they look like?
They're annual. They pay a per capita for participating in the shelter. And then they pay a per diem for any animal that's brought into the shelter from the community. For dogs, it's one, cats, it's another. If any vet services are required from any animals brought in from other communities, the community that sends them is required to pay for that. The majority of the animals that are at the shelter are Bucksport.
I was wondering
And we
about
don't have any, if we remove the compensation from outside, even the per capita that we do, where they're paying for the cost of the animals that are brought to us. And the per capita subsidizes our operation. That's how it's set up to work. Because the per capita is, if you never bring an animal, you've still paid whatever the per capita is, and for those communities. So reducing that per capita just reduces the subsidy that supports our facility, and because the cost of we're not paying for those animals anyway.
I'm just looking for a way to try and cut down on the number of animals, therefore cut down on the amount of noise, cut back on not going into Penobscot County to take care of their animals, trying to just take care of locally.
I can give a for instance on that too. I work in Penobscot County for a different community, and we pay per capita to the Humane Society of $16,000 a year. That's if we bring 0 animals or we bring 100.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter how many animals we bring, and we pay that same amount. So.
But you also pay vet bills
Vet
and
bill,
per day.
Exactly, and we also pay for every animal that we bring. So
Well-
all of these, so that's what I'm saying is that it's not as easy as just saying, hey, we're not.
Oh,
we're not,
no,
we're
I
not
get
bringing-
it, and maybe the solution is Plan D and enhance our position with these other communities.
What-
I don't
So
know.
I guess sort of what I was saying when we started this conversation at the last meeting was, and I think I worded it wrong, was that you could have partnerships with others Because, you know, there are communities that need help. There are communities that have no place, right? And,
Yeah.
it is a problem. It's,
Yeah.
But if
I
I'm
feel
correct,
it's a problem.
go ahead, Tracy.
I feel like we've got two pretty viable options on the table as far as looking at this property and behind the town garage, and I'd really like to check out the property just to explore the options that we
You have
have
to.
and,
And we have to do something.
Exactly.
Now, this has gone
Yeah.
way too long.
And this
Yeah.
building is already up and standing.
yeah, and if it doesn't work, we'll know, right?
Absolutely.
We won't
But
really know until we see.
Aren't we in, correct me if I'm wrong, violation in our current one? We're just being allowed to operate?
We have no,
There's no jurisdiction, right, or no authority.
we're missing some things, but, you know, it's not shut downable, but the idea that, you know, it's not just office space, it's bathroom facilities and it's washing space and all that kind of stuff that we don't have in the current location, and just adding on right in that, it's not ideal. The transfer station is not open Tuesday, Wednesday, Tuesday and Wednesday, and so when the animal people are there, if the gate is open, people go in and dump trash. Anyway,
It's not the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's, in my mind, that's not even a.
Well,
Who
it's
made
not
the,
how
who made the
water-
comment about
No.
our, about the town of Bucksport becoming a land, owning land? Or becoming, that was you?
Yep.
Okay, I'm in no way suggesting that we take land off of the tax roll or that we start acquiring land and becoming land barons. What I'm trying to accomplish is bringing costs down, maximizing our resources, and if that's how it's done, then that's what I'm in support of ultimately.
Sort of a quick sale after we buy it.
Correct.
Pay for the,
Right, quick sale, quick lease, quick income return, absolutely.
Well, the other thing that we discussed was that it's never been that this proposal under anything was going to be totally on the, it was all gonna have a capital campaign associated with anything that was going to be done related to the animal shelter, because
yeah.
that wasn't the,
Could we talk to Director Gagan as well?
Yeah,
I wrote that down.
Great.
yeah, we definitely need his input.
Yeah.
And the committee feels we
100%.
can move on it because even if we like it, we're in the next June at the very earliest.
Well, the other theory or scenario could be that after November, if our vote for our threshold for our spending goes well, and it does actually become feasible to save the taxpayers that much money, if we're in a position to put an offer in for anything that is within that realm,
But we have to,
and we could get that money back on a sale, then that's something we could operate.
but don't we, Sue, have to calculate the whole project? You know, we can't just buy it, if it's $450 and the whole project's $750, we still would need to
Correct,
go to a vote.
yeah.
Before we acquired it.
And that's where the site visit comes in.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
But there's,
I'm up to
there's-
Plan D, that's all I got, thanks for listening.
We will be at G by the time we get something done, but let me know.
well, there's all sorts of options, you know.
Maybe P.
So
You made a motion?
I'll make a motion to
Investigate this.
recommend this to council to have a code enforcement site evaluation of what we're gonna need there. The condition of, that it's in now and what we're gonna need to retro it.
Is that an out-of-state owner?
Yes,
Yes. So you have it.
but she's been here recently.
But, I mean, remember, she'd also have 2.5% withheld.
Yeah. Are they buildable, is it buildable land? Do we even know that?
Yeah, out-of-state sellers,
So-
like 2.5%.
We can look at our map, GIS will tell
420.
us, so that
And we have
what
450, they may not.
it
be.
zone it's in terms of ability to, well, that, you know, whether it's wetlands or whether
Mhm.
it's all
Makes
mapped
sense.
on our stuff, so.
So we have a motion and a second.
Mhm.
All those in favor?
So CEO site evaluation and discussion with Director Gaten.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
just for the safety of the employee.
The employee and whether his, you know, he feels that's easy enough for them to keep an eye on. You know, like they gave an input on the skate park and everything.
Yeah.
He's got an employee that drives by it every day.
All right,
Just stop in and say hi, pet some doggies,
that's one approach.
kittens.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Meeting adjourned.